things that I need.
I know we always need God, and you always have to remember to pray.
You always need a glass of wine too. A bottle of wine.
So, Mom,
God,
And a bottle of wine.
that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, Auntie Jackie, thank you for joining us here today.
You're welcome, Meg. Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you.
And she's come all the way from California to give us some guidance from a grandma, so we really appreciate having you.
Okay.
For more reasons than you're just my auntie. So, Auntie, today, when you're thinking about expectations you put on your children, what do you have to invest as a parent to make sure that you get what you expect?
Well, based on my experience from, I have 2 children. I worked in a field where I was always dealing with parents and, as a matter of fact, delinquent children. And part of my conversation with the parents was always to invest in your children. Invest time. Kids are kids only for a short period of time. And sometimes we go about our lives thinking that I have to work overtime on the job, or I'm working a Saturday, and you have kids at home. Your children should always be your priority. They're only kids for a short period of time. And what I found dealing with my own children, plus I have 4 sisters and they have children, and what I found is when you invest in your children, and what I mean by investing in your children, what I mean by that is go to their games. Don't just send them to a game. If you sign them up for soccer, you should be out there cheering your children on. If you whatever sport, whatever activity you put your children in, show the interest. Show the interest in what they're doing.
So you're talking about investing time, not just money.
Mostly time. Mostly time. When I grew up, come from very humble beginnings. And I tell people all the time that my praise and glory to my own mom is that she had very little in the way of material things to give us. Very little. But she gave us love, and she gave us attention. My mom had 7 kids. And I really could sit here and say that I could almost feel like an only child when I think about my mom. Because she gave us each attention.
And her love carried on because your mom happens to be my grandma. And her love that she gave, really, I felt that she loved me so much all the time that I didn't even recognize that she wasn't rich, because there was such an abundance of love that I constantly received from them.
And it's really true. When I think back, I realize now that I didn't even know we were poor.
That's always been a running joke. We were poor when we grew up, but don't tell Granny because she don't know.
Do you think you were able to give your children the same kind of love that your mom gave you, or do you think you were more, because you were from such humble beginnings, you were more invested in giving them the monetary things that maybe you didn't have?
Now, I tried to give my kids more than what I had. I did. I tried to give them more than what I had, but instinctively, I was able to give them love and support. I was at all of my son's games, even when I didn't want to be there. I was at all of his games. My daughter, she played sports. I was at all of her games. That's what I did. I adjusted my work schedule so that I could be at my daughter's games.
I just add where I am, I realize that it's really important I think the word invest, you might kind of screw that a little bit and not really understand what it means, but it's like putting forth, okay, if we want these kids not to be running the streets and hanging out and doing things that we wouldn't have them do, we have to make sure that they're doing things and we're investing in them that are constructive and that are giving them the opportunity to do something better and different, opposed to
being out in the street, just
being out in the street just ripping and running, watching TV all day, or just sitting idly and not doing anything.
Right, and really investing in your children also includes interacting with them.
Mhm.
I mean, really, when you're at home with your children, make time to play board games with them.
Right, right.
You know, that induces conversation that you may not have otherwise.
Right.
I know when my son was giving me the blues, I basically, I have two very good, successful children. But when he would, you know, he's in his teenage years and he gave me the blues a little bit, sometimes I'd be so mad at him that I couldn't speak. Because really, if I spoke, it would just be nastiness.
Right.
So in order to get across to him, I would bring out the checkerboard and I would insist, come play checkers with me.
Right, and the technology today is like the kids like, play a board game? How are we gonna play a board game without a computer?
We're at the park. How are we supposed to play any game?
Right, we're outside. You want us to play? What is that?
Can I
So,
use your
Auntie,
phone?
let me ask you, did you raise your children as a single mother, or,
I was a single parent.
okay, so as a single parent,
I was a single
you were still
parent.
finding time to give them the attention that you need? Because that is probably what will pose the question to some single moms who are working and have multiple children,
And
who
have
are
to
very
work.
busy, and, you know, are exhausted at the end of the day. So what are some of the things that they can do, or how did you manage to still give them that love and attention and support that they needed?
Structure.
That
my
is
life,
very good.
my life was structured. It wasn't regimented, but there was structure. I had set times. We came home. We did our homework. I made time, and then the thing that I always insisted from my children is, don't bombard me when I walk in the door. Do not just come, Mom, I need this, I need that. It's like, no, Mom comes home, Mom goes to her room, come out 15 or 20 minutes later, after I've had, you know,
Get your
really,
head right.
yeah, 10 minutes. Right. And then I could deal with them. But you know, as a single parent, sometimes we feel like, overwhelmed.
Right.
But you have to choose. You have to choose what's important and understand that your kids do grow up. They do gain some independence. So you're not missing out.
Right.
You know, we have to understand that we're really not missing out, because the kids grow up and then all of a sudden we wonder, what am I going to do? You know, I thought I didn't have time.
Right.
Now I have too much time, but your kids should be your priority. That's just the way it
Bottom
is for me.
line. Right.
Bottom
Given the
line.
benefit of hindsight, I mean, you know, you've been where we are now. Is there anything that you would say, I would have done this a little bit better, or a little bit less of this, or a little bit more of that?
Different.
Just
I think really one of the things that I would have done differently is I would have moved out of my neighborhood. And that's an investment in your children too at times.
Where you
Example, example being is, you know, maybe you don't live in a neighborhood with the best of schools.
Right.
You think, but I can't afford to pay for private school.
Right.
Although I couldn't afford to pay for private school, maybe I could have afforded to pay $50 or $100 more in rent to move into a better neighborhood with better schools where they have extracurricular activities.
Right.
Okay.
You know, so that's hindsight. But to my glory, my son has 3 children, and he lived in a similar situation. And I told him, Smokey, you need to move. You can't afford private school, but you can afford, Mom, I can't afford to move. I'm like, son, you cannot afford not to move.
Exactly.
You can't afford not to move. And proof positive, for the first time after he moved into a better neighborhood with better schools, for the first time, my granddaughter started talking about going to college.
Right. Very good.
I mean, seriously, this it was just remarkable.
Right. And especially probably for the parent who is single, who's not at home as much and may have to work.
Right.
Where your children are, even when they get older and they're going outside to play. So kind of the company that they keep,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
that will be beneficial for that.
Right.
Very important.
Right.
Very important.
That I never thought of that. But I mean, I realized, but I think for me, where I was living in the neighborhood that was less desirable, then we just drove real far to go to another school. But given different circumstances, I may not have been able to get the girls to the different school. And in that environment, you know, it's just no good, you know, for
Socially,
them,
right.
socially for them, and even just education-wise. They wouldn't have gotten the same level of education. Yeah, we can do whatever we can do at home, but it's still the majority of the time is spent in school. So
Yeah.
And really, that's part of investing in your children.
Right.
That's part of where you live is an investment
Yes.
in your children. You know, some people think, oh, I want to live over there in the big fancy house. It doesn't have to be a big fancy house. It can be an apartment
Right.
in the better neighborhood.
right,
You know, better neighborhood. It may be smaller than the one you have in the
Right.
hood.
Right.
right. Ain't nothing wrong with the hood.
But
We've all lived there.
Right.
We've all lived there.
Sometimes you really, I mean, what you're saying is absolutely true. You're thinking you don't have a choice. But if you look out there, you can find places that are less expensive than these places that are not desirable in a better school community. You just haven't taken the time to look because
You
half
haven't
the
put
battle
in the
is
investment, the
Yeah.
time to invest.
the time to invest. I recently took my son out of a class. He was in school for 2 weeks, and his teacher in his class was just not up to par. So I think the school is great,
Right.
but his particular class had a new teacher. She wasn't able to give the kids what they needed, so I had to move him out of the class. And it was a tough decision because I knew the teacher's heart was right.
It wasn't tough. She said, "Excuse me, you're out of here."
I was like, oh, I see you're trying, teacher.
Right.
Mike is leaving today.
Saves the
And
life.
then she told the teacher how she could improve.
Yeah, because I want the other kids to still have the opportunity. And what about that? I mean, if your kid, do you just take your kid out of an environment and hope the best for the other kids, or do you invest in his friends?
no, you know,
Forget them kids.
no.
God watches over children.
Yeah, and what I feel is it's a job
Right,
investing in your own children.
Right.
It's a job taking the time and energy to make sure that you have what you need for your children. Because in the long run, it's going to make them wholesome, whole adults.
right, right.
Wholesome, self-sufficient, independent
Right,
children.
right.
That's what the goal is.
Right.
And so when you say your children too, I know you have grandchildren.
I have 2 children.
Uh-huh.
I have a son and a daughter.
Mhm.
And my son has 3
Mhm.
children.
And how old are your grandchildren?
My grandchild is 21, 18, and 11.
11.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 girls and a boy. So the oldest is 21, that's a girl. And the middle child is a boy, Eric and Ayana and Lily.
Is it equally as important to put in that same investment into your grandchildren, or can you kick back and hope that what you put into your kids will flow over?
Well, something funny. Something funny. My son called me. He was having a little bit of a tug of war with his son.
Mhm.
And he called and said, "Mom, I need your help. Help me. What should I do? What should I do? How do I deal with this?" And I said, "Son, think about what I did." Right? Think about what I did with you. And just apply those same principles. Parenthood is universal. It's universal. It's really, I'm not saying all children are the same, but the same energy.
'Cause I